On October 13th, 1917, somewhere between 30,000 and 70,000 people stood in a muddy field in rural Portugal, waiting. They had come because three shepherd children, the oldest just 10 years old, had made an extraordinary claim that on this day, at this hour, something would happen that would make everyone believe. The crowd included farmers, priests, skeptics, journalists, even reporters from anti-religious newspapers determined to expose what they assumed was a hoax. And then, something happened. What exactly happened that day remains one of the most debated events in modern religious history, not because of faith alone, but because of the sheer number of witnesses, the documented newspaper accounts, and the fact that even those who came to mock left shaken. This is the story of what became known as the miracle of the sun. To understand what happened that October day, we need to step back 6 months. To the spring of 1917. Europe was drowning in the trenches of World War I. Portugal, though far from the front lines, had sent troops to fight alongside the Allies. The country was politically unstable. The government had recently gone through an anti-clerical revolution, and tensions between the secular state and the Catholic Church were running high. It was in this atmosphere that something strange began in a small village called Fatima, population less than 2,500. On May 13, 1917, 3 shepherd children, Lúcia dos Santos, age 10, and her 2 younger cousins, Francisco and Jacinta Marto, claimed they saw a vision of a lady brighter than the sun while tending their sheep. The children said the lady spoke to them and asked them to return to the same spot on the 13th of each month. She promised that in October she would reveal who she was and perform a miracle so that all may believe. Word spread, and with each passing month, the crowds grew. By August, local authorities had become so concerned that they actually imprisoned the children for 2 days, trying to get them to recant. They refused. By September, an estimated 30,000 people came to watch. And by October 13th, the promised day, the crowd was enormous. Estimates range from 30,000 to 70,000, though the exact number is impossible to verify. What we do know is this. Among the crowd were journalists from major Portuguese newspapers, including reporters from O Século, a secular, anti-clerical newspaper with no sympathy for religious claims. They came to document what they assumed would be a non-event, or better yet, a scandal to expose. What they documented instead would make headlines around the world. The morning of October 13, 1917, was miserable. Heavy rain had been falling since dawn. The field, called the Cova da Iria, had turned into a sea of mud. Pilgrims who had traveled for days stood soaked and cold, many wondering if they had made a terrible mistake. At noon, the appointed hour, the 3 children knelt and began to pray. According to Lúcia, the lady appeared to her as she had before, and identified herself as Our Lady of the Rosary. She asked for a chapel to be built and for people to pray for the end of the war. But the crowd saw nothing. Not yet. Then, around 1:30 in the afternoon, the rain suddenly stopped. The clouds parted, and the sun became visible. And that's when the witnesses say it began. The sun, at one moment surrounded by scarlet flame, at another, aureoled in yellow and deep purple, seemed to be in an exceedingly swift and whirling movement. It seemed to detach itself from the sky and advance threateningly upon the earth, as if to crush us with its huge and fiery weight. The sun's disk did not remain immobile. This was not the sparkling of a heavenly body, for it spun round on itself in a mad whirl. These are not religious pamphlets. These are quotes from O Século, the anti-clerical newspaper, published on October 15, 1917, just 2 days after the event. The journalist Avelino de Almeida was no believer, yet he described what he saw with unmistakable bewilderment. Multiple witnesses described similar phenomena. The sun appeared to dance or spin in the sky. It seemed to emit different colors: red, blue, yellow, violet. It appeared to plunge toward the earth before returning to its normal position. Many reported that their clothes, soaked from hours of rain, suddenly became dry. Not everyone saw the same thing. Some reported dramatic movements. Others saw more subtle effects. A few saw nothing unusual at all. But the sheer number of witnesses, spanning believers and skeptics, clergy and journalists, farmers and academics, is what sets this event apart. So, what are we to make of this? Let's examine what we know and what remains uncertain. What supports the extraordinary nature of this event? First, the scale of witness testimony. Tens of thousands of people reported seeing something unusual. This wasn't a handful of believers in a closed room. This was a massive open-air gathering with hostile witnesses present. Second, the newspaper documentation. O Seculo was not sympathetic to religious claims. Their reporter came to debunk. Yet his account of the sun dancing was published for the entire country to read. If it had been an obvious hoax, this would have been the perfect opportunity to expose it. Third, the consistency of key details. While descriptions varied in specifics, several core elements appeared across multiple independent accounts. The sun spinning, the emission of colored light, the sudden drying of clothes and ground. Fourth, the prediction itself. The children had publicly announced, months in advance, that a miracle would occur at this specific time and place. The event was anticipated, witnessed, and documented, not claimed after the fact. What are the skeptical explanations? Skeptics have proposed several natural explanations. Atmospheric phenomena. Some scientists suggest that dust or ice particles in the atmosphere could have caused unusual light refraction, creating shifting colors or the appearance of movement. Mass suggestion. When thousands of people stare at the sun expecting to see something extraordinary, their expectations can shape perception. The power of group psychology is well documented. Retinal effects. Staring at the sun, even briefly, can cause temporary visual distortions, after images, and the illusion of movement. Selective memory and confirmation bias. Witnesses who saw nothing unusual may have been less likely to share their accounts. The dramatic testimonies survived. The mundane ones were forgotten. Each of these explanations has merit. None of them is unreasonable. But here's the honest truth. None of them fully explains every detail, especially the reports of clothes drying rapidly after hours of rain, an effect that has no clear atmospheric explanation. Whatever happened on October 13, 1917, its impact was undeniable. Within years, a chapel was built at the site. Today, the sanctuary of Fatima is one of the largest pilgrimage destinations in the world, drawing millions of visitors each year. The three children's lives took very different paths. Francisco and Jacinta died young, victims of the 1918 influenza pandemic. Lúcia became a nun and lived until 2005, spending decades recounting the events and sharing what she called the 3 secrets of Fatima. Multiple popes have visited the site. In 2000, Pope John Paul II, who credited Our Lady of Fatima with saving his life during the 1981 assassination attempt, beatified Francisco and Jacinta. They were later canonized in 2017, exactly 100 years after the event. So, what really happened at Fatima? Was it a genuine miracle? A mass psychological event? An unexplained atmospheric phenomenon? Or something else entirely? The honest answer is, we don't know for certain. What we do know is this: tens of thousands of people witnessed something they found extraordinary. Journalists from skeptical newspapers documented it in real time. The event was predicted in advance and occurred as scheduled. Over a century later, the debate continues. If you want more case files like this, subscribe and tell me in the comments. If you had been in that crowd in 1917, would you have looked up or looked away?